Bramborough back with Grand Tactician Civil War. Union campaign very hard and elevated. Begun in 1.07, now in version 1.08. The CSA High Command has made a fatal mistake. After a year of static warfare in Virginia, with few gains for either side, an operational oversight has suddenly and dramatically changed the situation. Winfield Scott's Army of the Potomac capitalizes on the opportunity. It's July 1862, July 2nd. We're in the middle of the summer, the second year of the war, second calendar year of the war. We're about 1 year into the campaign, which began, I think, July 18th. Having just crossed into July, let's see what the latest Econ and Intel have to tell us. Yeah, they're grayed out. I looked before. Okay. So this is showing A- up here, but that's because I've loaded up yesterday's save and we haven't advanced time yet. The time that this report was issued, B+, we're down into the Bs, but credit rating is still pretty good. We had issued some more bonds, and our debt is at $440 million. Economy cycle has been in recovery pretty much this entire game. Wealth is below average and increasing, again, pretty much where it has been the entire game. I thought that we would start seeing some decreasing here whenever I bumped up the tariff, but we have not, so that's good. And this tax revenue number is suspect. That's basically all of our taxes. Haven't constructed anything recently. We do have another fort and depot building at Chattanooga, Tennessee. Imports and exports have increased some more. And I feel like in a relative sense, the percentage, this gap is widening. 900 million in exports, 2.3 billion in imports. So that's something like, I don't know, just off the top of my head without doing math, 40% imports compared to exports, whereas we were pretty darn close to like a 2-to-1 ratio or 1-to-2 ratio earlier in the campaign. So that trade imbalance has widened. That's not good. Corporate production, food, wool, iron. Now that's what this report says. However, food and wool, fine. Iron, though, it's not showing up here as one of the items in shortage anymore. And if one looks in the goods, iron production 228,000, demand 216,000. So we're meeting iron demand now. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't transportation bottlenecks that maybe are preventing the iron from getting to the foundries where it's needed. That could be happening. But we don't really have a shortage overall of iron in the economy. Intel. King Cotton 3, yeah, they're really working on this particular line. Trade warfare. I had been talking in the strategic objectives a couple of times previously in the campaign about how the Confederacy was having a surprising effect on our economy from privateering. And I was attributing that to, well, I guess the Letters of Marque Act must be really powerful because there's obviously no actual Confederate fleets blockading any of our ports. And I forgot about this. I don't remember seeing in the intel reports where they had put a whole bunch of levels into trade warfare, but we could have missed it. I had forgotten about this project. So some of that effect they're having on our trade could be coming from this too. They have bumped up relations with Britain and France, and that's coming from the King Cotton. 30,000 more men recruited. So they're doing another recruiting push. They've formed another army in Virginia, and they made another little fleet. Around 75%, and they remain mostly defending his land. And this has been consistent, right? I think pretty much there may have been one or two offensive early in the campaign, but at least the last 8, 9, 10 intel reports, last months in a row, they've been in defensive mode. Okay. So as noted, our credit rating is dropping. Let's have a look at finances. Now, I took the tariff act, which allowed me to increase tariffs. I did not increase tariffs all the way. I bumped it from 30 up to 40%. You can see that here. Right here is where I took the tariff act, and by default, it went to 50 very shortly. I dialed it back to 40 because of the effect on private wealth. So we've got a little bit of room on tariffs on this side of the equation. I think, though, it's pretty obvious we are not far from the end of this campaign. I'm just not going to continue pursuing the Prussian weapon project. I just don't think it's, even if I unlock, I just don't think it's those weapons would ever actually get fielded. So I am going to save 12.5 million here, and I'm going to zero out diplomacy. I'm going to zero out economy. I'm leaving politics only because we're at the stage where we need politics subsidies in order to unlock policies. Where do we stand on that? 7. We're using 7 right now, but we're literally going to, so this is going to be number 8 here when we unlock this, and then I'm going to go for government funding. So that'll take us to 9, and that's with the politics subsidies where it is. So I'm leaving that alone. I'm going to leave these others where they are, but so I'm saving 12 million here. That'll help a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and bump tariffs up. Let's just take it up to 50. And what else was I going to do? Oh, right. We have, let's go through the projects real quick. It's kind of related. I already talked about politics. We do have some politics subsidies coming in. I'm going to do suppress population again to counterbalance the POW camp whenever that comes up. I just don't see the effects of these are just kind of, to the extent that they have any, it's long term, and we're kind of in a short term horizon now. I brought the economy down, so we're not pursuing these anymore. I do. I think we've got the army we're going to have. I was feeling pressure to go for farm mechanization again for another level. But I think I think it would help Yeah, even if I do, even if I don't form a whole lot more units, that is more recruits in the pool for replacements. So here very shortly, I'm going to take this farm mech level again. Industry. We're getting close on one of these, and we'll probably take subsidized industry. When this fills up, should be a few days. Already talked about diplomacy. I'm just not pursuing anymore. Since it's, we're not going to do anymore, but since it's here, we'll just go ahead and use what subsidies we've already accrued, and we'll just take a level of trade deals. Fine. I'm going to take another level of logistics reforms. Again, on all these weapons projects, we've got what we got. I mean, we got plenty of weapons. We got some good ones. We never did get the machine guns. We just have the one Gatling unit. So we did get the Gatlings featured in the campaign. I'm going to take logistics reform in an effort to beat down the army upkeep cost a little bit. Was that really the first level of logistics reforms I'd taken? I guess it is. I should have taken a level of that earlier. I guess it was ironclad monitors that I went for instead. Anyway, logistics reforms, upkeep costs of military transports and costs of supplies, minus 5%. Okay, and then here in policies, as soon as this finishes, I'm going to go for government funding. And what that will do is, in itself, all it really does is increase economic subsidies, which we're not pursuing. But it unlocks Revenue Act, which brings us the income tax. And that's a pretty big chunk of change right there. And then if needed, kind of a break glass in case of emergency act, we would have available war bonds, which is a +2 in credit rating bump. Which I wouldn't take immediate, but it's just nice to have that in your back pocket for when it's like, oh, I need to, oh my gosh, I need to recruit 2 more corps right now. And I need to spend a ton of money. Okay. So there's some econ policy project stuff, and to kind of counteract the fact that we have been spending more money recently. And even with the money we've been spending, the high Bs, that's still fine. If you're running around at BBB plus BBB, yeah, you're in fine shape. That's kind of for most of the history of this game. That's kind of the norm. So we've been doing fine on finances in this game. I'm just kind of doing some tweaking here. Okay. Wait a minute. Oh, right. Yeah, I'm saving industry and ag subsidies for projects, as I mentioned. Let me say one word about the. I have not built a lot of buildings. Not the first time I've mentioned this, but it's worth repeating since we're talking about econ stuff. I have not built a lot of buildings in this campaign, meaning economic ones. And as I've mentioned a couple of times in this campaign, it's not because I'm ignoring economy so much as I was just trying a different approach of, instead of a building focused approach, a project focused approach, where instead of spending subsidies on buildings, I was putting them into the projects like market reform and subsidize industry and infrastructure reform. And, there's just less involved with that. You just go into projects to click a button. You don't have to hunt around for workforce areas and is it close to the the raw materials and what are the pre-goods, and just less involved. And yeah, I haven't been terribly happy with it. I think that we could have done more for the economy with the more building focused approach, which I used in the last two CSA campaigns. One of which was in 1.06 beta and one of which was in 1.06 live, where we use those subsidies for things like farms and mills and plantations and industrial buildings. And toward the ends of those campaigns, yeah, I thought we had the economy kind of going pretty decently. You know, all of these, you never eradicate it, but this list of production shortages, you know, we kind of knocked them out and went down the list and whittled them down to like 6 or something. It also doesn't hurt that the Confederacy has gold and has niter. And starts with salt and without having to. I did build the salt works up in here. The one mill experiment up here for shipbuilding, and that turned out to be a bust. So on future campaigns, whether CSA or Union, yeah, I'm going to be building more buildings than I did in this one. I was just kind of curious to see if you just gradually, incrementally increase industrial or agricultural production via projects, you know, how does that do? And it probably has had some effect. You can see in here in some of these items, a lot of these items, yeah, there's still shortages, but the gaps between production and demand have narrowed. Like if you look at food production, 781 demand, but 511 produced. That is way more production than we were seeing earlier in the campaign. Crops production, 244 demanded, 222 produced. Crops is pretty close to being sufficient. Again, a much smaller gap, much smaller shortage than we had earlier in the campaign. If this campaign were to head on into 1863, yeah, I think some of these would start getting cleared out, even with just using projects instead of buildings. Theaters, Arkansas. Okay, so here in the Trans-Mississippi, things have been kind of back and forth. And overall, overall strategically, Lyon has kind of done his job in that Missouri has never been in serious contention. St. Louis has never been threatened. He's made, however, he's made of, he had this campaign in Northwest Arkansas, and that has been very much a mixed bag. Captured Carrollton, 2 attempts on Fort Smith, neither successful, and in this latest development, actually got his army pretty much demoralized and has had to retreat from Carrollton as well. It is still Union at the moment, but Johnny Reb is capturing it back. And Lyon has retreated all the way, not to Springfield, but to Rockridge, up to here. He's back in Missouri. Well, kind of the glass half full. And I've got them moving back up to Springfield, closer to their supply depot. The glass half full interpretation is that with this action in Arkansas, Lyon has effectively defended Missouri, just kept the fighting out of Missouri entirely. The glass half empty approach is Lyon tried to take Fort Smith and failed. So, depending on your personality and your strategic outlook, but you're welcome to put any kind of face on that you prefer. Here, kind of in the West Tennessee area, Army of the Mississippi has arguably been one of our more successful armies. They kind of ground away and took 2 out of these 3 forts up here. and then hopped on the river, did an end run around Samuel Cooper, came down here, took Fort Pillow. That opened up the Mississippi. Cooper came after them to negate that development, and they threw him back. And now they've taken Memphis. Good job, Army of the Mississippi. Notice I keep saying Army of the Mississippi, not George McClellan. Because McClellan, ran away up to Cairo. Or close to Cairo in the middle of that. He's back here now. So now I think that the real strength of this army leadership-wise is, there we go. Isaac Stevens, he's my boy. I should probably promote him to command of the Army of the Mississippi for role-playing purposes. But then I'd have to find something to do with McClellan. McClellan in this game, in Grand Tactician, is an interesting thing because he's not terrible, right? On the one hand, his initiative sucks and his cunning. And I don't think I don't know if I've ever seen proof, but it feels like some of these officers kind of have ceilings on certain attributes, right? I've never seen McClellan above 1 star in initiative. I've never seen Joe Johnston above 1 star in initiative. But some of those same officers, like McClellan and Johnston, they can develop really high in leadership and admin, right? So it's kind of like, okay, he's not super, but his leadership and admin are just, he's still too good not to use somewhere. Okay, so they're building a supply depot here, which they need. They don't have a good supply situation. They're taking some attrition, having just taken Memphis. Now, this effort for Fort Smith over here failed. However, because the Army of the Mississippi took Fort Pillow, we've got navigation access to these rivers. We could come at this the other way. I feel like I need to keep lying here just to keep the rebels out of Missouri. But I'm also thinking maybe we could get a force up the Arkansas to go take Little Rock, come at it from the other direction. Whether we get to that point, I don't know. First, we have to deal with this army, which this is now the largest. When I say this army, there's 3 here, but they're all moving together. We kind of need to deal with this concentration of rebel forces. They've been thrown back for the moment, but they're still there, need to be dealt with. And I think that's what I'm going to do with the Army of the Tennessee. For a while, the biggest threat in Tennessee was this Army of Tennessee, but they've moved across the mountains all the way to here. This was their last reported location, which is several days old now. But their strength has dropped. Their troops have been transferred elsewhere. This is now a 12,000 man, estimated to be a 12,000 man army, and projected to increase back to 18,000, which is only about half the size they were. We don't know where they're going. Given the route it seems they took, which would have been Knoxville to here, it feels like they're headed toward Atlanta. I am not going to proceed with the Army of the Tennessee. I've pulled them back to Nashville. Let's move this cavalry. There's also the Army of West Tennessee knocking around somewhere over here. We don't know where he is. Let's move this cav over to Knoxville and just see what he sees. If he can get sight on the Army of West Tennessee. And actually, we've got 2 gunboats here that are doing a pretty good job keeping an eye on things. Let's send Scout 15 all the way up as far as he can go up the Tennessee River. for vision. Meanwhile, we do have extra brigades coming to the Army of the Kanawha. This was a 4 infantry brigade force, and it is now a 7. It's basically a proper corps now, and Cadwallader has over 20,000 men, which should make him equal to the Army of Tennessee, but we also have an army building a depot here. Interesting to know what that might be the Army of West Tennessee right there. I don't know. Or it could be a new army. So I think the thing to do with the Army of the Tennessee under Grant is let's move them over. Engage this army, force it to retreat south. He's kind of up here in a salient, where he doesn't have any red IIPs up in this area to retreat to. He has to retreat south. So let's come hit Cooper with Grant's army here. And then the Army of Tennessee will move down through this way and capture Corinth and Decatur. And that'll give us kind of an army here, and an army here. I think that's the thing to do in this theater. Along the coasts, we still have a siege ongoing at Tampa, at Fort Brooke. I don't know how that's... Time hasn't advanced, so we could get kind of a quirky display here. Very tiny in our favor is what it looks like at the moment. And then we've got a siege going on at Fort Macon at Morehead City, shown as a Confederate advantage, despite the fact that we've got some siege perks going. This is disappointing. Now, this is a 2-tier fort, and the one down in Florida, that is a 1-tier fort. So that probably explains that. I've plugged more fresh frigates into this battle squadron. That should be arriving fairly soon, everything above 90. This Virginia blockade, I'm keeping it here just because there's a couple of like Confederate river ports, but the main seaport here at Norfolk, that's been Union for quite a while, to the point where it's not even showing the flames icon anymore. So this particular blockade fleet has dropped significantly in importance. So I pulled some frigates out of it to bolster the battle squadron. The reason why the battle squadron was not successful in its latest bombardment attempt was because it didn't bring very many ships. Why did it not bring very many ships? Because it had 7, brought it down here, and it engaged a couple of fleets. Easily won, but took just enough damage where Farragut had sent three of those ships in for repairs, even though their condition was above 90. That's why he went into this bombardment with only 4 ships. So I should have paid closer attention to that before I told him to bombard. That was my oversight. And finally, that brings us to Virginia. And quite frankly, I believe that the Confederates have given us a window here to deal a crushing blow. They have committed all of their forces in Virginia to this siege warfare just south of Manassas, which currently is in their favor. It doesn't look like it should be in their favor because they have a lot more broken brigades than we do. But they got a lot of siege perks working here, and we do not, because I don't have siege perks on these forces. First Corps, though, is uncommitted, and he is coming into the fray. That's going to change the dynamic here. But by committing all these forces, they've left Richmond wide open, and the Cav Corps is on their way. Let me make sure this movement order is, yep. They are on their way to capture Richmond. So what I'm going to do here is McConn's going to join the siege. I'm not going to immediately do anything with that. We're going to wait for the Cav Corps to come down here, capture Richmond first, and flip it. That will turn these IIPs down here blue as well. And that will not give these forces a red IIP to which they can retreat. They're going to have to retreat toward Charlottesville, not back toward Richmond. That's my plan. Depending on the balance of the siege, I may even have the Cav Corps come capture Petersburg as well for the same reason. We'll see how that goes. In any case, once that's done, then we will convert this into a tactical battle, and the combination of the capture of Richmond and possibly Petersburg and this battle, I believe, will bring this war to an end. Okay, I've done enough talking. Before I get time rolling, let's go ahead and get the Army of Tennessee headed over this way. We'll get Grant right about there. Let's bring Sherman on in. Let's bring him here. And Hooker. If I can get Hooker, damn it. If I can get Hooker selected, bring him on about here. Okay. Time rolling. Line should be moving back up to Springfield. Fort and depot building here. Depot building here. Should I build a fort at Memphis as well? As long as there's industrialization too, as discussed before, popping government funding. 54 days. You know, as long as we're sitting here, let's just go ahead and build a fort too. That's fine. Okay, let's get all these. Okay, McClellan's defensive. Curtis, let's go defensive and defensive. I've just issued some more bonds there. Okay, we've sent this scout up here just to keep an eye on things. And this army is still here. Don't know where this army, well, okay, so this city has gone Confederate. There's the Army of Arkansas. There's a current posit right there. They are in defending their land mode, so not really expecting. Looks like we had a naval battle somewhere. Charleston blockade. 2 ships captured. Okay, let's go pull those captured ships out so it doesn't affect his readiness. Ooh, there's more forces coming on. And I think that CSS Virginia is in here. In one of these. See, we don't want these ships bringing Lardner's readiness down. Okay, his ships look like they're in fine shape. I think we got a couple more battles happening here. Want to watch these because I want to see if we spot. I want to see what these ships are made of. You know, what these fleets consist of. Okay, that's just a couple of steamers. No biggie. Let's let that other. Well, crap. Didn't get to see what the ships were in both of those squadrons. Let's pull this other captured ship out. Okay, next customer. This is a Port Royal squadron. 6 ships, 62 guns. So 10 guns per ship. Let's see what happens here. Lardner has been pulled down into yellow readiness now. So they may achieve their goal of stopping the blockade momentarily. Okay, what's in this squadron? There she is. 2 steamers. 2, he's got a frigate. I wonder if that was captured from us. So he's got a full frigate here, the Savannah, and a sloop of war. But he's got this ironclad. So this fleet could actually do us some damage. I think we're going to win, but it's interesting. Okay, steamer disabled, yeah. Because Virginia can use ramming attacks as well. So we may do us some damage here. And it's still several months before we have ironclad monitors. They're building, but they're not close to complete yet. They're probably about 40% complete. So far, our ships are doing fine. Okay, Richmond Falls. Let's leave this for a second. Let's go see how things are going up in Virginia. There's usually a little bit of lag. These, yeah, there they go. They've flipped blue now. Yeah, let's gobble it up. Cav, come down here and take Petersburg. And do we have the First Corps involved in this siege yet? I believe we... It's hard to tell. I think they're in there. Okay, this is shifted in our favor now because we've got 80,000 infantry. Of course, he's got 23,000 calves, so call it 86,000 troops compared to his 75,000 troops. So it's still pretty darn even. We do have an artillery advantage to some degree, and casualties are about even. I think we can let this percolate a little bit until Petersburg is captured. But I'm kind of interested to see what that ironclad does to us. Lardner has been driven down to orange readiness. So even if we win this battle, Lardner's blockade is broken, at least until he can regain some readiness. See, we saw some ramming attacks there. I'll let that go by too fast. Virginia ramming Susquehanna. Okay. Yeah. And there's a couple of different, I think Cotton-clad Ram is another. There's a couple of these ironclad types, which I think are Confederacy focused. That's their main attack, is the Ram. Virginia does have 10 guns as well. Virginia ramming Wabash. So Sabine's down into the 60s. Mount Washington is down into the 60s. I mean, Mount Washington and Albatross, they're little steamers. Starting to run low on ammo on our ships. Oh, we sank the Virginia. Ammo explode. Well, she sank herself. Ammo explosion. That's pretty lucky. Ironclad threat is neutralized. I'd kind of like to capture Savannah instead of. Well, she was out of range already. 2 enemy ships sunk, 1 ship captured. Okay. And it looks like that fleet disintegrated entirely. However, look at that tooltip though. Disintegrated, however, remaining ships rallying at the nearest port. So when a fleet disintegrates, its ships do not disappear entirely. They go back into the pool. They'll show up somewhere else, which is what happened to Virginia. She was in a disintegrated fleet earlier in the campaign and then came down here. But she's not doing that again because she's been sunk. So Lardner's driven down into red readiness. That's going to take a long time. The blockade is lifted on these ports for now. However, Virginia's sunk, so I think that's a fair trade. And oh, by the way, I talked earlier about this was a risk because it was possible that this corps would lose this siege and then disintegrate because it couldn't find a good retreat path. How was that looking? It is looking like a Confederate advantage. That doesn't mean that all these brigades are going to disappear. They'll show up somewhere else. Right? Disintegration isn't quite the complete disaster that the term implies. How we doing on capturing Petersburg? Okay. How is this siege going? It's in our favor now. Let's go ahead and let the Cav complete capturing Petersburg. Oh! Okay, well, I didn't expect that. I didn't think we were that close to winning. I really did have every intention of converting that to a tactical battle. I didn't think we'd win that fast. Let's go see how close we are to engaging. Okay, Grant has the Army of the Tennessee in position to pitch into Cooper. Winfield Scott has picked up a 3rd perk slot. It's got pontoon trains, skilled cartographers. So it comes along that armies have to build supply depots and forts sometime, and that could continue on our way south. So I'm thinking engineers and mechanics. And then the other one I'm thinking is embedded. Let's go with embedded reporters. That'll increase the fame generation among all the officers in the Army. I think that's a good one. And that should affect all 4 corps. 5 corps, counting the cap. Grants imposition. Do we have any more information here? No. We are almost done with this supply depot and fort here. What are these guys doing? Okay, it doesn't look like the Confederates are pursuing us back up into Missouri. How's our morale situation? Okay, we're back in good supply situation. Steedman's Corps is back up to confident, back up in the yellow readiness. Okay. I think as soon as Steedman's back up in the green, we'll send him on back down to Carrollton. Oh wow, this total dominance. Yeah. 27 national morale. Capturing Petersburg might do it. Let's see where all these armies retreat. I think they're going to have to go to. I think they're going to go to Charlottesville. Some might go to Stanton. Now, once they recover, and they will, AI armies recover pretty fast. They may come back right over and take Richmond. They may. I don't think they're going to get that 20 morale back by doing so. They may get a little bit back just for taking a 4 a tier 4 city. They may get a little morale for that, but they're not going to get that 20 back for the capital because it's not the capital. Where is the capital? Is it Charlotte? No. Seems to be a little random. Charlotte is a typical spot, but it's not. Looks like this time they went for Wilmington, is now the capital of the Confederacy. Interesting. I don't think I've seen them go to Wilmington before. How is our readiness up here? So we have a couple corps at orange readiness, but we've also got a couple corps at green and yellow. Let's go ahead and push 10th Corps. We'll see. Can't push him too far. I can push him. Let's push 10th Corps about to here. And if I can get them selected, that is probably 1st Corps. That is the green readiness. Yes. Let's push him down here too. Push the Army HQ down. I can't move the other 2 corps inside Virginia because they're orange readiness. But if we push them here, they're still eligible for reinforcement if there's a battle. I think that'll work. Put them in position to counteract a move on Richmond if we can. And this supply depot is now a Union. It's probably empty. Well, there's some provisions in it. Not much in the way of ammunition, though. don't know where these guys are going. I think they're just trying to find a route to come south to some IAPs down here. But these other cores coming down are keeping them in rearguard action. Let's make sure that they keep moving. Let's keep moving so that we keep putting them in rearguard mode and not able to stop here at Richmond. Where's 10th Corps? 10th Corps, you need to be moving faster, bro. Hancock, I don't care if your troops are greener than the rest. It's the final push. Get moving. Okay, they came here to Burkeville. Okay, we're just about finished with Petersburg here. Any moment. There we go. Okay, Army of Virginia is already recovered. That's a new force, by the way. We saw that in the intel report. Now that doesn't mean these are all green troops. These could be transferred brigades. At least some of them could be transfers from the Army of Tennessee, but they also recruited a bunch of troops too. These are probably mostly green troops, just not necessarily all green troops. Who knows how they've shuffled things around. Okay, let's tell First Corps to get right here into Richmond. 10th Corps has dropped to orange readiness as well. So basically, 3 out of 4 corps in the Army of the Potomac, after this latest development of the campaign, they're kind of immobilized at the moment. And Hancock his corps is actually nervous. Thomas is stable. He's stable. Oh, Key's. How has Third Corps gone all this time and not gotten a perk? Ambulance Corps. How about these other corps? Any perks? No. All right, so Army of the Potomac has kind of run out of steam as it is, which means we may not hang on to these cities, especially Petersburg. However, that popped them to 26. So we got the extra point from capturing Petersburg. So basically, we are one battle away from winning the campaign. And that battle offers itself right here at Jackson, Tennessee. Let's get Grant up here. And we'll get the 4th Corps in here. We'll get the 5th Corps in here. So Grant and Sherman and Hooker are going to nail the final coffin. In West Tennessee, which I bet you means we're going to fight this battle on the Shiloh battlefield, which I don't think I've ever fought on. 600 plus hours in this game, maybe 700. I'm not sure. I'm not to 700. I'm getting close. And I've never fought in the Shiloh battlefield. So that'll be even more appropriate. Grant and Sherman on Shiloh. All right, come on, get closer. Everyone's close enough. Get in there. I don't care if you're low on supply. You've got plenty of ammo. And here we go. So really the only question here is, will Cooper even fight? He may just retreat. I don't know. In any case, hopefully we're going to have a battle here. Finish out the campaign. But that will be in the next episode. If you like what we're doing with the channel, if you like this content, then leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. If you're new to the series or the channel and you haven't caught previous episodes in this series, I'm linking the playlist. At any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.